today. This is a good group. I know some of you don't necessarily come every time, but this was information that would be useful to caregivers who maybe are not a part of this support group. So we have a whole host of folks here, and I'm delighted. I'm Brenda Weidman. I'm Associate Pastor at United Methodist Church, First United Methodist Church here in Bella Vista. And I'm one of the co-facilitators. The other person who is Lauren Shelley, who is a counselor, a licensed counselor from the Schmeeding Center, is not here today. She could not come. I'm sorry. She was sorry that she was going to miss this, but she could not be here, and she sends her greetings and said if anybody needs her in the next month to feel free to give her a call at that time. So make sure as you are able that you get a name tag, because we may want it's helpful for me to be able to remember names and to know who's who here. So please do that for my benefit, if not for other people's as well. Helps us get to know each other better. Betty just came in. I said instead of better, I said Betty, because I just saw her and Earl going in the door over there, so she'll be here in a minute. I do want to introduce our speaker. We are just really blessed today to have Krista Hamilton from Magnolia Place, who is going to provide information that many of us don't already know. And it's called the validation approach, and it's a communication approach with those who have dementia. And so she's going to be our speaker today. Thanks to Ron's daughter for planting the seed in this sometimes very dense head. We're going to record today, and our technology person from First Church is Casey is going to be doing the recording, and so we're excited about that. So as soon as we get to the point, and Casey is, I'm sure, already ahead of me, but as soon as we get to the point of finding a way to make that recording available to those who could not be here, whether it be relatives or someone else, we will let you all know. So just know that if you need someone who would like to, or you need the recording information later, we will have it. What have I forgotten to say? Krista has materials over there. She's from Magnolia Place. She has materials there. There is coffee and goodies back there. Krista, not only did she come, but she brought cupcakes and healthy things, carrots and celery and stuff, so feel free. Now's your chance, but I'm sure she will understand if you need to go get another cup of coffee or whatever.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So anything else I should be telling? Any questions before we get started?
I should ask again, how long do I have to talk?
We have this room until 2. Actually, we have an afternoon, but typically we try to leave by 2 o'clock.
Okay.
So an hour and 15 minutes, whatever you would like. Okay. All right. Haven't done that, then I'm gonna sit down.
I won't take that long, but then I'll open it for questions and all of that as well. Again, I'm Krista Hamilton, and I work for Magnolia Place, and we're an Alzheimer's and dementia community in Rogers. I'm not from Arkansas originally. I'm from Wagner, Oklahoma, and a lot of y'all probably don't know where that's at. It's just north of Muskogee. I grew up in a Piggly Wiggly grocery store. A lot of people cannot claim that. I can, and now I do not like going to the grocery store. It is not my favorite thing in the whole wide world. But I loved it as a child, and I spent lots of time with my elders. My grandparents spent a lot of time with me because my parents were always working. My dad was in his late 20s when he bought his Piggly Wiggly franchise. And it was the first franchise grocery store, by the way. Something you didn't know, maybe you knew now. But my parents were very busy folks. And I'm from a very large Irish family in Wagner, Oklahoma. And a very tight-knit group. My father is the youngest, and my grandparents were much older. My dad was unexpected. My grandma had him in the barber shop by accident. It was the closest place. And she took him home literally in a shoebox. I am not kidding you. She put him in a shoebox and took him home. the doctor that delivered him took care of him. His son ended up being my doctor my whole life, and my sister and brothers. We had that kind of an upbringing, and I absolutely adored my grandparents. I spent time with them. They were caring for me, but I learned how to draw up insulin at 7 because my grandma was too shaky. But Grandma was never diagnosed with Alzheimer's and dementia, but she did become very paranoid because my Aunt Bertha was always trying to steal things from my grandma, according to my grandma. And so we were always hiding things from Aunt Bertha. And I would always say, well, how is she getting in the house? Well, she's getting through the window. Well, Aunt Bertha couldn't fit through that window, Grandma. I don't understand. So, I learned at an early age, there's some things, and I would have to communicate with her differently. And I found it very interesting, and I could communicate with her. And then as I grew up, have you guys ever seen Goldie's Hamburgers in the Tulsa, Broken Arrow area? Yeah.
Been there many times.
Well, Goldie is one of my good friends' grandma. And Goldie eventually went to a nursing home. And it really made my friend mad that they put a cash register in the nursing home for Goldie to work, because Goldie had done that for years and years at her hamburger shop, the first one. And at the nursing home, they put a cash register in, and it kept Goldie very busy, and she was very happy. And my friend thought they were making fun of her. And I said, no, that's wonderful. She's staying busy. She's working. That's the neatest thing ever. And it took till we grew up for her to say, that was neat that they did that for her. And it leads to what I'm talking about today. They were validating Goldie. They were giving her respect. Because part of what your needs are, your basic needs are that respect, feeling like you're doing something, you're giving back to the community, you're giving back, and you're part of the workforce. So it all leads me to talk about the validation approach. Has anyone ever heard about validation therapy with dementia? Well, validation in general, we do it every day. We don't realize it. I know you all have good friends or family, and you'll have a bad day. I know I call my mom and I'll say, Mom, you wouldn't believe the day I had. This lady was so rude to me. And she'll say, honey, you do not deserve to be treated like that. How dare she do that? And my mom is validating me. One day I realized, I called my mom and I said, now I know I'm wrong, but you just tell me I'm right, because I need to hear it. And I didn't realize until I started learning about this. I just told her, validate me, tell me I'm right, that's all I need. And my husband is crazy, that's all I need to hear. And I'm right, he's wrong, and that's what I need to hear. And if anybody will do that, it's my mama, because my husband is crazy according to her. So we all need that, whether we have dementia or not. We need to be validated. With this, it is an approach. The values, the beliefs, the realities of the person with dementia, it helps reduce their stress and provide opportunities for that affected person to communicate with us, to reduce, again, the stress and their behavioral issues. So if you can validate them, they can get their feelings out whatever way that it is, because we're not getting and communicating right when we have dementia and Alzheimer's. Those feelings are not coming out right. We cannot express it. If you can help them express those things, we're not going to get mad and be angry and slam things. And so it really does help. It's a therapy. It really is. And it makes your life easier with these folks. I always use my mother-in-law as an example. grandmother-in-law has had dementia and Alzheimer's with many other comorbidities. And my little mother-in-law could not reason. She would reason with her, and she would say, "No, Mom, no, you are here, and this is 2010, and we are doing this." And arguing with her made it so much worse, and it got her nowhere, and you could not stop her. And here you go. I was just like, oh, it isn't helping. So validation would have helped so much. It was just exhausting. And the person that has Alzheimer's and dementia, you guys can all agree, they've lost their ability to reason. And so the more you reason with them, the worse the situation becomes. And we have to help them. We have to give them a safe place. And we have to be able to help them tell us what they're feeling. I'm going to give you a lot of examples and a lot of stories because I don't know what you're dealing with at home. I don't know first stages, second stages, if it's a friend, if it's a loved one. I know that in the first stage, there's a lot of hoarding, stealing behavior. I made a mistake yesterday with a first stage person. They do live with us in the first stages down to the last stages. And as educated as we are, I made a mistake. And she was very upset. She likes to sit in the quiet and color. And everybody was in her area, and they were all painting and being loud. And our late stage folks are in another area, and she didn't have the area to herself, and she was mad. But I didn't realize. I said, "Why are you sitting out here?" And I reached over and touched her. And when I did that, she jumped out of her chair, and she was mad. So you know that people in the first stages, touch isn't the best. You don't just reach over and touch them when they're having behavioral issues or trying to get things out. They may have, like my grandma thought somebody was stealing from her all the time. I'm going to give you an example. Let's say the neighbor keeps coming in and stealing my wallet. They keep coming in and stealing my wallet. Well, what do you say? You know, do you want to lie to them? I mean, do you think, well, if I lie to them, part of them is going to realize I'm lying to them. That's going to break down their trust in me at some point. So you want to use what, when, how. Don't use why with them. Why is too complicated, and it's threatening to them in a lot of ways. Don't use why. But say, well, what, no, you know, what neighbor? What neighbor? Well, that so-and-so, that man next door, he's stealing my wallet. Oh, well, do you think he's hurting for money? You would say, do you think he's hungry? I don't know if he's hungry. I don't know. Well, wow, he's always been such a nice man. Don't you think he's a nice man? Well, yeah, I think he's a nice man. But, he's stealing my wallet. Why on earth do you think he would suddenly become a thief? Well, you don't want to say why, because that's too difficult, So it's so easy to fall into that trap. You want to say things like, I really like him. You guys were friends. He likes to water his yard. You like to water your yard. And you want to remind him of the good things. You want to remind them of the good things. You want to use opposite imagery a lot too. And you want to say things like, wow, they always really helped out the poor. I just can't imagine them being a thief, and get them talking about it. and say, well, do you think you could share with them? You know, if they're really hurting, next time he comes over, do you think you could share? And keep them talking. If you can keep them talking, you've won the lottery. And get them to be empathetic. A lot of people, their go-to is being a caregiver. And just get them thinking about it. Again, touch isn't the best in that situation. Use simple language, but reassure them and talk to them about that person. Why is not a good question for them, but do get them talking about it. In the second stage, time. They're disoriented with time. So I see a lot of this. I see a lot of folks that will come and they'll drop 60 years in a moment. I don't know how many of you guys are dealing with somebody that's disoriented with time. Can you raise your hand and let me know if you feel comfortable? Yeah. So I have someone pretty much daily that comes to me. We have about 50 residents right now. We have the capacity for 66. And I have someone that comes to me daily and says, my mom and dad are coming today to see me. And one lady in particular said, I can't go in there and have lunch or supper or whatever it is because my mom and dad are coming and I need to wait and watch the door for them. And I always say, oh my goodness, you look so lovely. And I do, I reach out and I rub her back because touch is good for someone that's time disoriented in the second stage. And I say, you look so lovely. They're gonna be so excited when they see you. But I am here and I know them. I'll know right where you're at. I'm gonna take them to you. Tell me about them. What does your dad do? And so we get to talking about it. And, are you excited to see them? And let's go have some food. They're going to be glad that you ate. You can't miss a meal. Let's go. So we get to talking about it. Another thing, you want to match their emotion. One little gentleman, in that stage too, and in all of these stages, I don't know if you guys have noticed, if you take someone to the doctor, you get out of your normal routine, things get very mixed up. They get very agitated, and it's like a different person. I have the sweetest little man. He's 100 years old, and we brought him from Bradford House to us, and he was so precious and sweet and good little Christian man, and I get him in the building, and he goes, I'm gonna blow those doors off the hinges. And I'm like, what? And I said, and everybody, these other family members are standing around and they're like, well, and a lot of people would go, well, look, sir, over here's a red ball. Look at this. It's shiny and red and it bounces. And I don't do that. I validate him and I say, well, how are you gonna do it? Just with the same emotion that he's using. And he's like, with my dynamite. And I said, okay, where's dynamite at? And he was in my trunk. And I said, okay, well, where's your car? It's in the parking lot. What kind of car you got? It's a Buick. What color is it? Red. You have a red Buick? I don't see very many red Buicks. Have you always had a red Buick? Yes. Well, is it a fast one? Yeah. And I said, well, I'm going to go out there. I'm going to look for it. Where's your keys? I don't know. Well, I'm going to go looking for them. We're going to blow that door off the hinges. We're going to get you. I'll tell you what. Well, I tell you what. Have you always used dynamite? Yeah, I have. I grew up in such and such Texas in the hills. And so we start talking about Texas. And by the time we're done, we're talking about puppies. I don't know how we got to the puppies, but he raised some dogs. They were, I don't know, they were red somethings, and I don't even remember. He had a red Buick, he had these red coon, I don't remember, but it happens like that. And if you can keep them talking, and you can go on a rabbit trail and get it to something pleasant, it's okay. You validated their feelings, and they've got their emotion out, and it's all right. They feel heard. They're needing to talk about something. And he was needing to get the emotion out. He was mad. He had been moved. It was in a new environment, and he was mad, and he needed to get it out. Something that we'll often hear, and I talk to aides a lot before they graduate their nurses aide training, and I tell them this, and I say, have you learned about validation? And they say yes, and I say, well, have you learned what to say to people when they say, I just want to die? What would you say? And one will raise their hand and they'll say, well, no, you don't. I said, that's not what you said. What? No, you use polarization with them. And it's difficult for us in a clinical setting because we are mandated reporters. And I have an adult developmentally disabled daughter. And this has happened to my daughter. My daughter has a lot of behaviors that are very much like an Alzheimer's patient. And she did this, I just want to die. Well, she was bored. But before you knew it, when I got the phone call, she was in an adult inpatient unit at Northwest Hospital, psych unit, because she had said she wanted to commit suicide. She didn't have a plan. So a lot of places will go, oh, well, they're threatening suicide. Not necessarily. So we use polarization again. So if your loved one says, I just want to die, the best thing to do is say, what is so bad that you want to die? And they'll say, oftentimes, I have one lady that does this every 3 weeks. It's like clockwork, and it's the strangest thing, but she'll say, I miss my family. And I'll say, who do you miss? And she'll say, I miss my son. And I'll say, well, I know that his leg is hurting, but I know for a fact if I call him today, he will come and see you. He will? Absolutely. Okay. He'll come and see her, and we're good for 3 weeks. But remember, polarization is really good, especially with those type of things. I just want to die. Well, what could be so bad that you want to die? And not a no, you don't, because you're pushing their feelings back down. You need to get them to talk about it. And that's validation. They need to talk about it and get it out. And it may be something ugly. It may be something that you never expected, something you never knew about them. It may be something deep, dark, and very uncomfortable. But we have to reconcile at some point in our life, and it's something that we have to get out, and they have to get it out. And I have actually had a resident in an earlier stage that did have a suicide plan, and we did have to, forward them on. We do check those things out. But that was someone who had got a divorce right before they moved with us. There was a lot going on. Life is messy, and when you get really into this disease, and you can't parse, everything's parsed actually, everything's everywhere. It's just so difficult to really put it together. You just need some help. You just need some help. Understand. You just need understanding and love and kindness. A lot of what we get to is, I want to go home. And even when you're in your home and they want to go to a home, I keep thinking I've dropped something. They want to go home, and they want to go to a home you guys were in 40 years ago because they are 40 years back. And you can tell them, well, we are home. Well, we are home. We are home. It's not going to help at all. And my suggestion for you, and my suggestion for the aides that graduate, because they're going to run into that, these last two things, I want to go home, I get it all the time, is, well, what are you going to do when you get there? What's your favorite room in the house? What do you like the most about that house? What street is it on? Tell me about it. You just ask them to tell you more about the house. Who were the neighbors? I know it gets frustrating if they can't remember. You know, some of the ladies, I'm like, tell me, what did your bedroom look like? Did you have a big closet? Did you have a lot of jewelry? Did you really enjoy your kitchen? Did you love cooking? And then we go on rabbit trails. And by the time we get done, we're sitting down and we're calm and things are okay. But when we start out, it's, I want to go home. And they've got their walker, I want to go home. Like, oh, tell me, what are you going to do when you get there? And I lead them, we sit, and we talk more and more. And as we talk, we get comfortable, and it's okay. One lady likes to go to work, and she'll tell me, I manage a furniture store. And I'm like, yes, I heard that. And I heard that you are very, very good at what you do. I'm telling you, you run that store like nobody's business. And she's like, yes, I do. So you just validate her. You know, and we call them therapeutic lies. It's okay. It really is okay to have to fit to somebody with this disease process. And when you study about validation, and there is a handout, I made a copy at the front of this book. I buy up all of the used copies on Amazon. Naomi File is the person who came up with validation therapy. In the 40s, her dad worked at a nursing home, and she would go in, and all of the little elderly folks were her friends. And she just kind of self-learned this whole therapy. And so she's written a book on it. But she also learned that people that are in a later stage, I guess stage 3, you know, when they start to make repetitive movements, and that actually is helped by mirroring their movements. And I do that every day. And it's very awkward for me, but it is very helpful for those folks. I have a lady that reaches out and she pats me. So I reach out and I pat her right back. Just pat, 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 pat. And we pat. And she walks by me and she'll go, and I do it right back. And that's validation. And I thought, this is so, if somebody walked by, they think this is just really Looney Tunes. But we train all of our employees on it. So even our dishwasher knows. And it helps, and she's calm, and I don't know how that helps, but it does. She feels like she has gotten it out, and it really does help her. We have several of them like that. Another thing that we do with those folks is music. And music helps anybody at any stage, of course. But music is very good for the folks that are no longer able to speak and communicate verbally. Music is wonderful. In the 4th stage, you know, where they're more in a vegetative stage, music is the best validation. Music and repetitive touch. And I worked in hospice for 17 years, so I definitely know that one for certain. Music and repetitive touch, their favorite music. And hearing is your last sense to leave your body. And I know that in my soul. I know that more than I know anything. Music and repetitive touch is a wonderful, wonderful thing for those folks. We have silent discos. So we all have our headphones on, nobody can hear it but us. And it looks really awkward, but if you put the headphones on, it's great. You're not awkward anymore. So We have some good times, we really do. But it is absolutely amazing to see the difference whenever you validate someone, because I've worked with folks for a long time. I started as a nurse's aide in 1996, and redirection was an amazing thing then. Oh, look, here, see this pen? It's great. It's over here. Let's sit, and I'm going to give you this shiny object, and we're going to do this. But you're pushing those feelings down, and we really want to just get them to get it out. A lot of our folks will be, we call them shoppers. If you've got a shopper, that's okay. Do not be ashamed of it. We validate our shoppers by letting them shop. And they're like, I like that, I like this, this is nice. And eventually they're gonna sit down somewhere and they're gonna fall asleep and they're gonna let things go, and we just pick them up and we put them where they go, and it's okay. And we start all over again, and that's all right. I have had a husband come in, his wife talks to the lady in the mirror, and I'm sure somebody in here has experienced that. If you haven't, you're gonna know somebody who has, or you're gonna hear of that. It's her, of course, that she's talking to in the mirror, and she folds her toilet paper and she talks to the lady in the mirror, and sometimes she gets very angry with that lady, and he's very embarrassed by it. It's okay. It's actually good for her. She's validating herself. And that's actually a very good thing. And we let that happen. That's an okay thing. And we'll let her have as much toilet paper as she wants to fold. Another thing too, validation-wise, think about hobbies. When people come in with us, we have something we call a Meaningful Moments program. And that is part of our validation. So we take their life history from you guys, and we sit, it takes us about 30 minutes to an hour, and we find out all that we can about their life history and how they grew up. Was it a big Irish family? Did they drink a lot of whiskey? No, I'm kidding. We didn't drink a lot of whiskey. My big Irish family went Free Will Baptist, so we didn't drink a lot of whiskey. That's a very weird thing, but Irish and Free Will Baptist. So, and Oklahoma. Yeah. But, you know, one lady, I love her to pieces. I can tell you about everybody in my building, but when she's having a bad day, I can walk up and go, hey, so-and-so, have you met her? She used to race snowmobiles in Alaska, and she won a lot of awards, and she'll snap her head up and she'll go, because she can't really speak very much. She's very proud of that. And I mean, what an amazing story. She fished, she hunted in Alaska. And to get reminded of it, she's like, yeah, I did. Yes, I did. I'm like, yes, you did. You're my idol. I think you're pretty cool. And so we have all of these things. So I know that Mr. Chet likes to woodwork. And it's not complicated wood. It's just these little pieces of wood and these little sanding thing. And he just sits and he'll sand and he'll do different things. And we keep him busy. We can find modified versions of what they love and let them enjoy it. And if you need ideas, there are resources out there, like us at Magnolia Place. You don't have to come and bring your loved one to live with us. You know, Village House, they're a great resource. I have 2 full-time programming folks. One is a programming director and one's an assistant, but that's all they do is look for things for folks to do. They have resources all over the country that they all get together and talk about. How can we help these folks through socialization and activity? It has been found that you can be overweight and be a smoker, but if you're lonely and have no socialization, smokers and the overweight folks are going to live longer than you. You've got to have socialization, and you've got to have interaction with people, and you've got to have some things to do. And That's why we are a social model. That's why Village House is so important. You've got to have that social interaction as well. And so we validate through that as well, and it really does help them. It makes them feel important and valued. So, you know, we can't always string jewelry the way we used to, or, you know, knit or crochet. But you know what? They sure like to tell me how to knit. And we live vicariously through my knitting and my crocheting, but we can always have the big knitting needles, and we knit, not knit, but we crochet rugs, because it's huge version of it. And we can do modified things, and there's a lot that we can do, a lot through music. And if you need ideas, reach out to people. The Alzheimer's Association has great information on their website. My husband, I don't know if he ever has this disease, I'm gonna have to take all the sharp parts off of fishing lures and pointy thing. I don't know how I'm gonna do that with fishing stuff, but it'll have to be done. I don't know, tie him to a fishing boat, and just, I don't know, but it'll have to be done. But there's a lot. One gentleman used to actually, see, this is where dementia, I think, is a little contagious. He did the boats. He recovered the seats and stuff in boats. So I had his family bring out pieces of the cloth that he used, and some of his rulers and whatnot. Now, he couldn't have the sharp objects, but he could have pieces of it, and he could have the tape measure, and he could just fiddle around with it. And that helped. That really did help. But it gets to a point where some of my folks may love WWE wrestling, and I'll say, hey, you've been watching that Batista? You know, the who? So we change. You have to be aware, too, of things that they're watching on TV. You know, we're very aware of the news and the weather. It gets very upsetting. But let me see here. Reminiscing, that's very good, and keeping them safe. But again, asking why, it's very difficult. That is, again, I put that on here at the very bottom. Don't ask why. But you want to keep them calm. And I don't know how many of you guys are online, but again, I made a copy at the front of this book, so you will have Naomi Feil, because her last name is F-E-I-L. I would write that down wrong, but so you'll have a copy of this. You can look up her book. I have kind of bought out all of the used things on Amazon. They're real low. They're real low on them right now, or I would have them to give to you. I had stacks. But you can find them really cheap. But she's also on YouTube. Some of the stuff is a little kind of hippy-dippy. I'm telling you, but get past that. Some of it is very, very useful and effective. There's some very good information out there. It's very useful. And I open up for questions.
You know, when you make reference to stage 5, are you talking in terms of 5 total stages as opposed to 7?
Four.
Or 4,
Just
I mean.
4.
Okay.
I was just talking about 4.
Okay. So I kind of get confused sometimes with stages when, like in the playbook, you know, Roy's playbook, you talk in terms of 7. And then sometimes it's 4, and sometimes it's 5. And I find that very confusing.
I always just look at it as 4. We really don't stage people at Magnolia Place. You know, so when I look at it, I always look at it as 4 really, but, you know, first stage, when I talk about it, is just really the very beginning. You know, the hoarding kind of angry, very, very beginning. Second stage, really a ways down the road where they're really disoriented with time, incontinence has started. I mean, we're really having a difficult time. Exit-seeking behavior, I mean, for us, that's what we're seeing. Third stage, very low. I mean, our third stage for a lot of people would be end stage, where I consider it. Third stage is no more speaking, repetitive movement. A lot of our third stage, in my mind, folks are just wandering the halls and walking, and their gait has changed. Repetitive movement. One of my third stage gentlemen walks probably 8 miles a day around our building, and we gave him extra food because he's using a lot of calories. And I know if I give him a cookie that he likes, he gives me a snap. And if I give him something he really likes, I get a clap. So I always give him a clap back or a snap. And I love to give him stuff because I love getting the snap and the clap. And I have these beanbag toss games set up in some of the corners because I can catch him occasionally, and if he gets one, he'll get them in. And he gets so excited, he'll actually holler out loud. So it makes me happy. You know, bathing becomes such an issue in second stage that towards the end part of the second stage, we're really having a difficult time. So we get to 7, and I've had people call me like 7.2, and I'm thinking, what are you talking about? How do you get there? So I know that in Compass, Home Health does a lot of, they have a dementia program, and they go out and they stage. That has been very useful for a lot of families. Any other questions? I'd love to answer questions.
My husband has never been social and prefers to always be alone, doesn't want to go anywhere, do anything. When they get to a place like that, do they change or do they stay the way they've always been?
Depends on the person. He may stay the way he is. I've had people that were always very social. That one lady was a hairdresser, and because a lot of things I think were tied to beauty, and she doesn't feel beautiful anymore, she doesn't want to leave her room. So she's one of our folks that sits in her chair with her door open and watches everything go on. And as she's kind of advanced a little bit more, we were able to get her out. And I would tell her, you know what, you are so cute today. Look at you, you're beautiful. And she would say, no, I'm not. And she'd tell her family, they keep saying I'm pretty, but I know I'm not. And so we got, our programming director used to be a hairdresser years ago. And she told me the other day, she goes, you see that lady over there? She pointed to our programming director, and I said, yeah. She goes, she and I connect. So they have to find people that they connect with. And it may be that he stays quiet and subdued, and he needs a quiet place. Our folks, you know, as you enter the later stages, in the first stages, if you're a real social person, you like a lot of noise. You probably won't believe this because I can stand up here and talk all day long, but I really don't like a lot of stimulation around me. Black Friday, no thank you. Like I said, the grocery store, I don't like it. My kids, by the time I would get through with my kids in the grocery cart, I was like, oh, just get over here, y'all get light, you know, and I don't like extra stimulation. So I would be the person happier with our folks sitting in the back living area that are later stages with the calm music, the calm TV. And he may be one of those that just needs the calmer environment. And you may just have to provide that for him.
Well, he doesn't like music or noise or anything, so.
I don't like that on the way home sometimes. I'll drive for 45 minutes with no sound because I just need nothing. I've had too much. And my husband's the social butterfly. I just need silence.
I don't have a question, but I have a comment. I know a couple of people at your place and they could be characterized as difficult. I know them really well, and they really like being there, so you guys do a good job.
Thank you. we do our best with validation. And I'll tell you guys, I mean, even our little housekeeper, one of the housekeepers is my son's age. He's I don't know, he's probably 23. And we teach this. We teach classroom style. Nobody does that anymore. They put you in front of the computer and you have to learn 30 hours on dementia and Alzheimer's wherever you go. The state requires it. And we teach everybody 30 hours. Classroom style, so they have to listen to me and our administrator. But it helps because of these difficult folks, housekeepers, they're getting clothes off the thing. And I was given a tour the other day and walked by, and one of our more difficult ladies had cornered him. And she was going, I just love you. She's just patting his bottom. And he's going, ooh, well, ooh. And he's been through training, so he's like, well, how are you today? Hey, would you like to go have some ice cream? Because he knows she loves ice cream. Oh, yeah, that's great. Let's ice cream. And I said, well, I'm going to try to help you out. And I'm like, some strawberry ice. I tried everything under the sun, and sometimes nothing works. And I don't think necessarily it was his rear end that she was attracted to. I think that's just the part she got, And he handled it so well. My little boy would have been like, what? No, I'm running for the door. And she just kept right at it, and I said, you're on your own, kid. And he's like, I'm okay, I got this. And so oftentimes with those difficult folks, though, you'll see me in the dining room, nobody else, me and that one person, with a bowl of ice cream like this, and they're pacing. And they're eating out of the bowl of ice cream as they walk by, and then they'll come and they'll eat out of. By the time we finish the bowl of ice cream, we're pretty calm. But a bowl of ice cream solves a lot of problems. And we get done with the bowl of ice cream, we're good. And that's my validation for that time, But I ask everybody when they come in, do you like ice cream? Yes. I haven't met anybody that doesn't like ice cream yet. And we have some lactose-free. We've got all kinds of ice cream. So we solve a lot of problems. But I have to hold it out like this because they're just running by, and I'll even follow you around with it. If that helps, these difficult folks will do whatever it takes. And always have some on hand for emergencies. If you have teenage daughters too. Yes.
I have a 57-year-old daughter, and I think that, and she's almost paranoid at times. But does a validation work with people like that?
It does with my daughter, who gets very paranoid. I can't say it would work with her necessarily, depending on how paranoid she is. I mean, validation was created to work with people over 80, and this and that originally. And then she included people with dementia. She called them, Naomi File said, old people, 80 and older. I'm like, old people, 80 and older. And then she went to include people with dementia and Alzheimer's. But I use this with my daughter because she does get very paranoid. She has a chromosomal deletion, and autism is on there. All sorts of different things go with it. And she gets very paranoid, and she'll say, my caregiver hates me. She hates me. And I'll say, what? She hates you? Oh, honey. Last time I talked to her, she said you did wonderful things together. You guys went to Walmart and looked at all of the cat supplies. My daughter loves cats. And you did this and you did that. And so-and-so said that she complimented you the other day and said, what a great kid you are, this and that. So I tried those things.
Well,
I had to try.
Well, actually, validation then works with anybody.
It's worth a try.
Because this daughter, she has a drug dealer in her building. And it's just driving her crazy. She thinks they've got her wired and hacking her phone, and just going crazy with all of that.
And sometimes, it might be helpful to tell her things like, we have reported it and we're just waiting out.
Well, she's reported it to the police. She's all over the place she's reported it. But nothing happens. So again, you know, and she lives in Fayetteville, so I'm trying to say, how do I handle this? Because she's driving me crazy with all these stories and, anyway.
I don't know.
And maybe instead of doubting everything she says, it might be better to validate what she says.
It helps me with my daughter tremendously, because I'll get to the point with my daughter, I'm like, you have told me this 100 times. It's not real. You have to stop. And I get very frustrated. I just get very frustrated. And I'm like, ugh, I have told you that those neighbors up there, because she has neighbors that live above, my daughter lives with full-time caregivers because she wants to be independent. And I had to place her in a group home first. So that's why I chose to leave Circle of Life and do what I do now, because I've been where a lot of people are. I felt that pain of having to place somebody. And my daughter wants to be independent, so I want her to have that. But I have to say, you know, they're just walking up there. It just sounds loud because you're on the bottom floor, or whatever. But I say, you know what? I know they're loud. I know they're stomping. Boy, they got big feet. And you know what? I talked to that manager about it, and he's just waiting and listening. He is waiting. He's doing everything he can. But, you know, he's like a spider. He's going to catch him in his web. You just wait and see. We're doing everything we can. We're going to get him. She's like, yeah. I'm like, yeah, we're going to get him. So I do my best. And a lot of times my daughter will call me and go, I'm so depressed. And through validation, we get down to it, she's bored again. Or, you know, and it helps me because she's not used to me validating her. And then she's like, oh, well, this is nice. And one day she asked me when I was validating her and saying, that's all right, honey, it's okay. I hear you. I understand. She goes, am I in trouble? I'm like, no, honey, it's okay. I hear you. It's okay. Are you sure I'm not in trouble?
Other people I'm sure have questions.
Can a family have placed a loved one in a caregiver's care too early?
Yeah, you can. I tell people if they're coming to us too early, I tell them, not ready for us yet. And I would hope that wherever you go, they're going to tell you that. But I often will tell you, most of the time when people come to us, it's not too early, but I will tell you it's too early. Now, the one that I have that is really early stage, she had the police brought out to her home several times because she got lost and this and that. But she bounces back and forth. I mean, she'll be very good and then she'll get very bad. So it's hard to say, but most of the time people are ready. When you really are looking, you know in your heart they're ready. If you go to a reputable place, we will tell you, because it's not about census to us. It's about doing the right thing, and we don't want someone there that's going to be miserable. Typically, someone is going to be miserable for about 3 weeks because it takes a while to adjust. But once they've adjusted, they're okay. It just kind of depends where they're at in the disease process.
I appreciate your subject of validation, because what I've learned since May in the dad is at Apple Creek, Centerton.
I like Apple Creek.
Apple Creek is good, but I've learned that we redirect a lot, and not only do I have my dad there, but I've gained a lot of friends there too, and I do a lot of what I thought was redirection now, and I realize now I need to do more validation with these people. Because Christy will be crying one day, and I need to let her cry and validate why she's crying and go on that rabbit trail.
And there's, you know, like one lady I have, for instance, the doctor came in yesterday and I said, she cries all day long. I mean, there's a certain amount of crying that can get, it's just so bad. I mean, all day long. That is a problem. But occasionally when we cry, we need to get it out.
Yeah.
You know? If I cry, run. Run.
Has she been there that long, or is she a new patient?
Well, she is somewhat new, but when we evaluated her at her assisted living, she was crying as well.
Oh, okay.
Just cry. And I think it is kind of from a stroke, because a lot of people that have had a stroke, they do cry. I have a gentleman that, he's one of my dad's friends, and he'll just be talking to you, and he'll just start crying, and he'll go, I hate that. He'll stop and go, I hate that. And I'm like, I know, he's a big biker guy. He's like, I just hate that. I cry, I just hate it. And I'm like, you are okay. You are okay. I do it too, it's all right. But usually when I'm mad, so.
My dad's going through anger right now, and I realize now I need to validate instead of asking why.
How do you, when someone needs to go into a home, how do you validate talking to them in that way
Well,
to get them to understand?
a lot of times you can't get them to understand.
Okay.
That is a very tricky thing. And it is a very, that's a very hard thing for a family member. And I always tell people there's this guilt game we play with ourselves. My mom does it over my grandma. I just wasn't good enough. I could have done this different. I should have done more of this. I do it with my daughter. The other day I was making dinner and I start thinking I could do this, I should do that, I should do that. By the time I finished, I was crying and I was the worst mom in the world, and I turn around and my husband's like, what is wrong with you? He's like, you're just making, and I'm like, yeah, I'm okay. But it's a guilt game we play with ourselves. And so guilt will keep us from placing them. And oftentimes, once they're placed and they've had enough time to get used to being there, we have kind of an awakening in them, and we see this awakening. And I can't call it anything else because you don't get better with this disease. But we have a little bit of an awakening where their routine is simple, they're bathed, they've got a schedule, they've got their room without a lot of different complicated things in it. They get up, they're not in their room all day. We get them up and out. We have certain things we do all day. One lady walks with her yellow coffee cup, and she eats by herself because she doesn't want anyone else around, and we do things but when she came in, she said 2 words, yes and no, and I couldn't redirect her to save her life. I thought, how am I going to get her in this building? We got her in. She was mad as a wet hen for a couple of days only. By, 5 days later, she's speaking in full sentences. She came in my office with a picture of her husband, and she goes, is he still alive? And I said, yes, he is. And he's going to come see you soon. Okay. And I'm like, full sentence? What is going on? And then I see her with a cup. And she's doing great now. Her husband actually comes up from, I'm not from Arkansas, it's south of Little Rock. It's from around Little Rock area. He couldn't find good care for her there that he felt comfortable with. And he's staying the week with her now, right now. She is doing great. She had just kind of an awakening. She just wasn't getting that socialization. It's not that she really does a lot of socializing, but we speak to her. Hi, how are you? Hey, how are you doing? Where's your coffee cup? What are you doing? I like that bracelet. And we'll just kind of speak to her. She worked construction her whole life. She's a rough and tumble lady.